and focus.
Today?
Yes. Can I say something in Spanish?
Yes.
¿Alguien tiene algún conocido o sabe a quién se puede contactar en Aguas Catamarca por una pérdida de agua? Yo tengo una historia con pérdidas de agua. Una casa que tenía 14 años, que era mi casa, se cayó por una pérdida de agua en la vereda y estamos pasando por un proceso similar otra vez con mi vecina. Sí. Así que...
No. Creo
llama
que...
llama a la guardia de Aguas del Valle.
Ellos tienen que hacer el reclamo, que lo han hecho 3 veces. Yo ya le dije, vamos con carta documento, con
Sí.
los abogados. Sí, Araceli creo que estaba comentando algo, no sé quién.
Sí, profe, yo creo que hay como un número de, no sé si es como dice la profe Analía, de atención al cliente, o sea, de emergencias, pero también hay otro de los que van a domicilio. Había una vez una conocida que estuvo no sé cuántos días sin agua y ella llamó a ese número, que no me acuerdo dónde lo encontró, y en ese mismo día fueron a verle. Le pido el número y le mando un mensaje, profe, cuando ella me lo pase.
Por favor, porque juro que fue, no es que me ponga sentimental ni nada, pero fue así un remover todo lo que fue el proceso, por Dios, cuando se nos cayó, no toda la casa, pero la parte de adelante de ambas casas, por culpa de una pérdida de agua. Para cómo esas pérdidas que no se ven, pero claro, se tranquiliza la avenida y se escucha. Se escucha como sale. Así que bueno, saco. Yo pensaba que tenía conocidos y no eran Aguas Catamarca, eran Exapen. Bueno.
No, ya sé que te...
estaba mal. Ok. Just a minute. Let me share.
Ok, interrumpir.
Ahora sí. Así que bueno, ya saben, miren, no piensen que el agua, no hay que subestimar el agua. No hay que subestimar al agua, es tan...
No, never.
Sí, tan o más problemática que otras cosas, ¿no?
Nada que ver. El domingo llueve.
Ay, sí. Okay.
Oh.
Let me know whether you can see. Oh, you can see everything I'm doing.
Yes, but it is very small letter.
Just a minute.
Remember my eyes, dear. Okay, great.
Better.
Great.
Let's see. So, I'm just going to check on the homework we had for today. What I could see was the fact that Joshua interacted in the forum, was the last one to do so. Am I right?
Me too.
Es gramática contrastiva, mijo.
Mónica también.
Mónica as well, okay.
Yes, but it is incomplete. I realized
no worries.
just this morning.
No worries. The idea was at least to have a clue. So, what we said, well, what was stated in the forum having to do with negation is what Analia was sharing in the PowerPoint.
If you allow me to show you, this is the way I write so that I don't forget. Anyway, I didn't turn over the page. And it says,
okay.
Siri faltó. Yes, so sorry.
No problem with that. Okay. So I was saying that negation is a language universal. That is to say, the notion of negation is common to all languages, right? But the difference, there are different realizations depending on language types, on language families, and the like, okay? The first thing we asked you to answer was, what would you say are the two key differences between Spanish and English negative declarative sentences? That is to say, given a sentence in the negative form in English and given the same sentence in Spanish, what the differences are. Let's see whether you have a clue. You can type. You can mime. See. Okay. Mhm. Right. Okay. Right. Right. That's a good introduction. Thank you, Joshua. Any other difference you can think on?
I was thinking actually in what Joshua presented that in English negation functions as an auxiliary verb, as the examples that Joshua said, don't, didn't, happened, doesn't. And in Spanish, it acts mostly as an circunstancial or something like that. Not as a auxiliary verb, but something like circunstancial or something to negate. I think the right name is circunstancial negación.
Okay, that's new to me, I must confess.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay. That's
I
okay.
learned in Spanish one.
No, that's perfect because actually we haven't learned English, Spanish language one lately. But those were good introductions to the topic, right? One of the differences we can think on is on the way or the means, the feature the different languages use to introduce the negative meaning, okay, the negative connotation in the sentences. We are going to see one other difference as, let's say, crucial or very extreme in a minute, okay? Let's see, the second question says, which negative would be the hardest to acquire? Spanish or English, of course, for the speaker of the other language. Spanish or English?
English.
English. Why? Why would you say so? What do you need to learn in English? Right. That's it. You need to know which tense it is, which mood it is, in order to use the proper auxiliary. Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to share?
The lack of multiple negation. In Spanish, we can use double negation, but in English, no. So you commit more mistakes in English, I think.
Right, right.
Sorry
Yeah,
for my
we are
dog.
going to explore that in a little minute. Okay, but connected to what you have just mentioned, yes, the use of auxiliaries, different types of auxiliaries, depending on different factors. So far, we are going to mention tense and mood because that is what you have just said. Just a minute, I'm going to turn off, sorry, my Facebook notifications. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, it says, can you recall any instance of your making mistakes when using English negatives? Were those of interlingual or intralingual source? Remember that we tried to make a contrast between interlingual and intralingual source. When we talk of mistakes of intralingual source, generally those mistakes are derived from generalizations, right? While if it is interlingual source, what you generally have is negative transfer. You transfer what you use in one language to another. Can you tell us, all of you should have had at least one instance of making such mistake in, let's say, in an awkward situation?
I don't remember.
Oh,
No, because when I started learning a lot, but I don't remember. It was such a long time ago. I still commit mistakes with, yes, I have to say, with double negatives, because there is interference from Spanish. I have to say that. Yes,
right.
from time to time.
Especially when we are using this orally. The thing is, oral interaction made us sometimes, I must confess, I must confess. One of the mistakes I still tend to make has to do with the word people. I still have the tendency to use people with what? Singular verbs. So, yeah, that is still one thing I need to think twice before using. People doesn't, right? People doesn't. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, I was thinking that probably it was something fossilized since I started learning English when I was a child. So no one corrected me at that time, and I still need to reframe sentences with people. Any other example you can think of? Double negatives. Well, we are going to explore double negatives in a minute. So probably there is where you are going to recall some of these mistakes I was referring to.
They don't commit mistakes, but remember when you started, saying, I know like, for example, okay? I know like.
Maybe, hello.
Hello.
Maybe when we started, we instead of learning how to make a proper question, we just used intonation in Spanish. Like, we said a statement and then we use the intonation of a question.
Right.
Okay. And for negation?
What?
For negation.
I don't remember, to be honest. It's been a long time since I started.
But when you listen to children, for example, learning, okay, for example, at the lab, when I listen to children, they say, no like means no like. You know? Okay, yes, it's a transfer or not. I don't have no idea. Okay, okay.
And there are times, by the way, thinking on one particular example, the use of aren't with I, that sometimes, I mean, is sometimes considered a mistake, though it is proper and accepted nowadays as an option. That could have been considered a mistake, but that's okay. Well, number 4, we introduce this topic. How does negation work in tag questions, both in Spanish and in English? What can you think of? Remember tag questions or tail questions?
To support, to check,
Right.
to contradict, depending on the intonation.
That's it. That's
That
it.
is why I wrote that tag questions and tag answers were the most difficult part of the grammar for me to learn, because it not only depended on the affirmative statement and plus the negative tag, but it also depended on the tone used in the tag.
That's it. Thank you, Monica. That's it. And you know, in English, we follow a particular formula. We are going to see that in detail, but briefly speaking, the formula is made of what?
Sorry?
When framing tag questions, you use a particular formula. You write
Okay.
the
The
sentence
affirmative
aloud.
sentence, the negative tag, is that
Yes.
the formula
Right.
you're asking for?
That's it.
Okay, and all the way around, the negative statement, the positive tag question.
That's it. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Monica. That's it. That's it. That is in English. We are going to see in Spanish in a little while. Okay. Let's move on because most of this is in the in the presentation. So we are going to recap on this in a little minute. In a minute. Number 5. Is there any feature of Spanish negation you were not aware of? Well, actually, not a
Yes, this for me, sorry to interrupt you. For
no.
me, it was this que no that it was not included in my vocabulary, honestly. I have heard santiagueños saying, ¿viste lo que pasó el otro día que no? But in
Right.
that way only, not in another.
Mónica, usted se perdió el que no es cierto.
Bueno, es cierto, ese tampoco lo había
El que no es cierto.
escuchado.
Well, that actually Keno is an interesting feature being used in, I would say, Santiago, Tucumán, Catamarca, and it's been popularized by children and teenagers, I would say. A short form for "Don't you think it is true?" or something like that. Que no es cierto.
Mhm.
Que no es cierto, claro.
Okay. Lo que Irina dijo por dos. Jotza. Okay, thank you for your contribution.
No, que no.
No, que no. No, que no. Okay, guys, let's see. Let me share. Monica, if you could turn off the microphone, otherwise we have, thank you, some echo. Let me find my copy. Of today's presentation. Okay, so we are focusing on negation, both in English and Spanish. So let's see. Negation in detail.
Are you sharing, Edith?
I'm about to.
Okay.
I'm about to. Just a minute. Oh. Ding.
I was sorry. I was saying that 23.2.5 no más. I have never seen or heard it altogether.
Say that again.
That I have never seen no más altogether.
Ah.
Always separated.
Well,
I've never read no más altogether.
no. But there are so many things the Real Academia Española has already allowed that I think we are not going to be aware of for a long time. You know, those conventions Real Academia accepts happen not to be used everywhere. Okay, negation, guys. Well, as I mentioned before, negation is a universal concept, okay? We are going to see that negation is constituted, actually, is constituted by a notion and a function or an experiment that realizes such notion. As mentioned, negation is a universal linguistic feature and it's a subject of variation across languages. Yes, please.
No sé, se escucha un poco de eco, puede ser. No sé si alguien tiene el micrófono prendido.
Sí, por favor, no sé quién tendrá micrófono prendido. ¿Solo tú? Ah, eres tú. Ok, no.
Ya, ahora se escucha bien.
Okay. It says, every language has its own syntactic, semantic, and morphological devices for expressing negation. We are saying this because there are different ways in which negation can be realized depending on languages. Okay, there are no rules or conventions. They are as arbitrary as any realizations of these semantic universals. Okay, let's see. English negation. Well, I'm going to skip this. Sorry.
Oh, I
Okay.
my shoulder. Can
Would
I
you
explain
like
this?
Yes, please.
In general terms, there are three devices by which we can express negations, and these three devices are shared. Okay, English and Spanish share those devices. Syntactical one is to add the negative particle to the verb phrase, and in this case, we have to be aware of the tense, the mood, right? And the second syntactical device is to attach the negative particle to the noun phrase. For example, not all the students like phonetics. Okay? Then another way in which we express negation in languages is the lexical device, let's say the lexical choices, words with negative meanings. For example, nobody, deny, rarely, without. And the morphological one is when we add negative prefixes to adjectives, yes, well, to verbs to make or nouns to form a negative meaning. For example, can you give an example, please?
Anormal, maybe.
Abnormal, okay. Well, as you can see, the same devices are used in Spanish. Syntactically, we add the, well, you know the correct word, Joaquín. I read partícula de negación, no, to the verb phrase, okay? We also have negative words with negative connotation, and we also have negative prefixes or prefixes that add negative meaning, right? How did you call the no particle, Joaquín?
Circunstancial de negación.
Circunstancial de negación. Okay, well.
That's something that we learned in Spanish 1. So when we were analyzing syntactically, we call this no circunstancial de negación.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Good
So
to know.
in that case, there are some similarities, but now Edith will continue with the contrast.
Okay, just a minute. Because connected to this, let me share you something else. Oh my goodness, this is not the file. Well, coming back here. So what Analia has just shown us are three different ways of showing what? You tell me.
Negation.
Right, of showing negation. So, and one of these was the one you mentioned. Which is the one you mentioned? You were focusing on what? Remember when you talked about the, let me share this again. When you were talking about the two key, let's say, differences between English and Spanish, Joshua, Monica, Irina, I think, Joaquin, You were referring to what?
I think that they refer to the differences in the syntactical level, let's say.
Right, because you mentioned the use of a particle attached to a verb, right? In English, while in Spanish, the use of the particle no, considered also an adverb or circunstancial de negación by Spanish grammarians, right? So the contrast between English negation and Spanish negation is at the same level. Do you agree on that? Guys?
Yes?
What about the rest?
Guess so, they say. Yes.
Anaí?
Yes, they are. They are writing in the chat box.
Okay, remember what we...
Can you repeat it again because it was a bit confusing? Sorry.
Okay. Coming back to... Okay, just a minute. Coming back to the presentation. Where is it? Oh. Ah. I was not showing the right slide, I think.
Yes, you were showing
sorry, my mistake. So coming back to this slide, I was asking you whether the differences between Spanish and English negation were at the same level. That is to say, whether they were from a phonological or a grammatical or morphological or lexical level. This is actually recalling what we saw last week. Last week, we considered the fact that in order to contrast languages, we need to split our work. And one of the things we would take into account was levels, right? The levels of the language. Remember that?
Yes.
But what about the others?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Okay, thank you. So, if we consider levels, we have two possibilities. Either to follow the traditional orientation or for this procedure of contrasting, which is to analyze two languages from the same level, or to see the contrast and see whether actually it matches the same level or not. When not matching was when we would be dealing with a shift. Remember the shift?
Yes.
I'm going to share last week's presentation so as to make this clearer for you. Oh my goodness, and I'm on camera.
Used in translation, I think.
Say that again?
That I think that this shift is something most commonly used in translation, I think, when analyzing translation.
But not of all aspects, because...
No.
Yes, please.
For example, in translation studies too, we are analyzing this.
Okay.
We're analyzing this kind of procedures or shifts or changes that they're from source text or source language to the target language or target text. I think, I don't know, Cielo, Irina, Paula may understand this.
Okay.
I think that as regards negation, we are at the level of syntax. The comparison and contrast will happen at the level of syntax, apparently, up to now.
Do you agree on that?
Both languages.
Aye.
Oh, what a controversy. What do you think? What did you say? That it is syntactic in English and lexical in Spanish?
Yeah, for me it is. Yes. I don't know, because in English we have also words like without, none, for example, that are lexical, and it's a lexical way to negate. But in Spanish we don't have like a grammatical way to negate. We don't have like an auxiliary verb to negate in
In
Spanish.
Spanish. We don't have a
In Spanish,
grammatical way
yeah.
to negate, but try placing no wherever. For example, no Joaquín vino. No
No.
Joaquín vino. No.
Oh.
Careful with that.
Ah,
By
so
the
it is
way,
syntax. It is syntax. Word order is syntax.
by the way, one thing to take into account. We are referring to negation in general, but carefully. When making contrast, we should focus on part of it, on particular examples. So let's focus on negative sentences related to an original affirmative sentence. For instance, Mary likes coffee. Mary doesn't like coffee. A María le gusta el café, a María no le gusta el café. So in instances as such, we do have involved syntax, even though the particle is a bit controversial. Even though it is a bit controversial, I must confess. Okay? Then if we take into account the morphological markers for negation, that is different, because you will have morphological markers as prefixes in both languages. So there is no, again, there is no crossing level. But my mistake was not telling you that we should focus on, let's say, a section of the whole negation, on particular examples. Because if we talk of negation in general, well, too many, let's
Quite
say.
complicated.
Say that again?
That it could be quite complicated or confusing.
Right.
Or
there are different
special.
phenomena. So there are different phenomena moving on. So having to do with declarative sentences, if you turn an affirmative into a negative sentence, what happens is that you make use of a syntactical feature, which could be an auxiliary plus a particle no before the verb, or which could be a circunstancial negación placed before the verb it is negated. Okay, so we are referring to the same level, so no crossing level involved. So if there is no crossing level, can we say it's an example of interlingual level shift?
No.
No. No, because a level shift is crossing level, so it is not an example of interlingual level shift. Right. Oh, sorry. Let me show you something else. What we are just saying actually matches what an author called Dryers. Remember the author I shared with some maps on the study of languages? Well, he says that these are the 6 different ways in which negation can be realized. It can be an affix, it can be a particle, it can be an auxiliary verb, it can be a word, it can be a variation, it says, between the negative word and an affix, that is to say both elements, or it can be double negation. The thing is that these realizations are going to differ. Not all languages apply them all, nor all circumstances of negation apply them all. Okay? Let's go into detail now of negation in English and in Spanish. Where is it? Here. No, nunca niego nada. Okay. I agree.
With multiple negation in Spanish, we have the possibility to use many ways at the same time. I can use Joaquin, I will say negative particle, a negative adverb, a verb with a negative connotation, right? So I love Spanish.
And a negative infinitive pronoun. Okay, let's see. Contrastive analysis of negation. Why are we placing so much attention to negation? Not just because we like the idea, not just because I had an article I had to write for a course on negation, no. Because negation is an element that has quite an amount of functional load. Remember that word, that term, functional load, communicative value? It's something we explored in the very first unit. So, yes, it is the last semester, the last term. It's old history, I know, but that's something we mentioned there, and it had to do with the relative importance of an aspect, a linguistic aspect, as compared to other aspects in a language. So what we are saying is that negation is an important issue. Bear in mind what you mentioned. It is quite hard for Spanish speakers to acquire the whole bulk of negation all together, right? It's not that easy. And I would say it is hard for English speakers as well when learning Spanish, but it was hard for us. So it deserves our attention, okay? The two aspects we are going to focus on, even though there are other details on negation we mentioned, are two. One that you mentioned, which has to do with sentence formation, when you mentioned the use of auxiliary negatives, the use of particle no in Spanish. And the other one is the contrast between English simple negative against English double negative or multiple, sorry, did I say English? Spanish double negative or multiple negative. This is an introduction, no worries. Okay. If we consider the first contrast that says sentence formation, how we turn affirmative declarative sentences into negative ones, what we oh sorry, there were no examples there. Can you give me an example of an affirmative sentence turned into a negative sentence both in English and in Spanish? Let me stop sharing. An affirmative sentence turned into negative in English and in Spanish.
Aprobó el examen, no aprobó el examen.
Okay. In English?
He passed the exam. He didn't pass the exam.
Okay. So, as we have mentioned before, that is the way we negate. We introduce this syntactic feature to make an affirmative into a negative sentence. But these are not the only circumstances we use negation. If we, let's say, try to make, to do some flashbacks to what our process of learning negation was, the very second thing we learned having to do with negation was answering questions negatively in English. Do you agree on that? So the very first thing you learned was negating. Let's say negating with verb to be. The second thing you learned was saying no to questions with verb to be. Well, even though the example is not with verb to be, what we are trying to focus on is on the fact that we also negate when giving short answers, right? And the difference between English and Spanish is as in the example. Who can read and explain the example, please? Apart from Joaquin. Apart from Analia. Apart from Monica. Apart from Joshua. No, it could be you because you have that voz de locutor. ¿Cómo sería voz de locutor? The translators. Speaker? Radio programmer voice? Okay, who can read the examples and explain them? Say that again. Pardon me?
Oh, presenter voice.
Presenter voice. Okay,
Presenter, I don't know.
It could be Joshua or anyone else. Read the examples and tell me the difference, please. Today. The idea is that we make it today, because if it is for next week, come on, guys, wake up. Cielo, Araceli, Sofía, Irina, Luciana. No, the girls are sleeping. I know my voice is so soft. Yes, please.
I don't know if I understood it clearly, but as far as I know, but it says no in the use of the adverb no solely in short answers in Spanish, as opposed to the adverb no plus subject pronoun plus negative auxiliary in English.
Right.
No, she didn't, and no. What I remember from what I read is that in English we cannot just say no, we need to add the she didn't, the negation, that is double negation. But in Spanish you can elide the rest of the answer without problem.
Okay.
All right. Yes.
Okay.
Is that so, or I understood any?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Pragmatically, you can say no in English, but it is not very polite. Okay. So you can say no. Did she start? Both of the answers respond to the question, did she study? In Spanish you say no and no estudió. No hay problema.
Yes.
En cambio, si decimos no in English, well, the interlocutor waits for the rest. No, it's a pity. No, she didn't study. No, she didn't. But no,
Besides,
only no.
again, I insist on intonation. That she didn't may take any kind of intonation, and it will provide many different meanings.
I agree.
And in English, in Spanish also, but you can put this sort of intonation only on the word no, or no, just like that.
Okay, thank you, Monica. That was a good point, because I remember reading once that it's very unlikely to answer a question in English with a monosyllabic word, but for a few exceptions, like sure. So, as you mentioned before, it's not considered as a polite or proper way to just say no or yes in English. That is why they say yes, certainly, or no, sure, or something like that. Or we make use of this, what you call double negation, which is, okay, you more than making a double negation, what you are doing is reinforcing the negation in two clauses, one before the comma, the other after the comma. But thank you for your perspective, because it's, as I said, in a good introduction to this. As you see, the difference relies on what is the, let's say, I don't know this in Spanish, sorry. What is the proformic function of some words? Proformic comes from the word proform. Have you ever heard of the word proform before? I guess we have just mentioned this in second year grammar. Broadcasting voice, thank you, proform. You know the word proform? No? Well, it's a word that replaces a whole idea. So as I said before, I don't think it is forma proformica or función proformica. I don't think it is in Spanish, but both no in Spanish and didn't in Spanish summarize the whole idea. That is why didn't refers to didn't study. As well as when you say, I think so. So refers to a previous idea mentioned. Well, in Spanish, this proformic function is more, let's say, condensed to the fact that just no replaces a whole statement mentioned before. Okay? A word or lexical unit which is dependent for its meaning or reference. That's it. For instance, so, not, auxiliaries in the negative form, auxiliaries in the affirmative form. The word one is also a proform. When you say, which t-shirt would you like to wear? The red one. So one refers to t-shirt I would like to wear. That is a proform. So the good fact about Spanish is just with one word we can summarize a whole idea with no or yes, even though I would say that from the stylistic perspective it's not that polite as well, because this is something I'm venturing to say. This proformic function of the word no is shared by Romance languages. And even Portuguese, this is something I learned from my husband's teaching, even Portuguese tries to avoid short answers as now or sim. They say something else. Sim, eu sei, now, eu não sei. They try to say something else, okay? Claro, esa es la idea, que el no nuestro puede resumir toda una idea anterior, pero como digo, desde el estilo, desde el estilo diríamos, y también desde lo pragmático, no es tan amable, pero se puede entender y como que no queda incompleta la idea. Eso es lo que tiene nuestro no. Oh, qué bárbaro. We are powerful. Okay. So, guys, this was another instance of negation worth paying attention, which is short answers in the negative form. Let's move on. Negative adverbs. Remember what Analia mentioned? One of the possibilities of framing negation was lexical, right? Making use of a lexical item. One of these lexical items is negative adverbs. You know, negative adverbs are adverbs like never, rarely, scarcely, hardly ever, and the like. They are generally or mostly, because there are a few examples I cannot recall right now, that are adverbs of frequency, okay? And they are generally placed, as it says here, in middle position. We have 3 different positions for adverbs in English. Adverbs in general. Initial, middle, or final, okay? which is repeated in Spanish, but not in all languages, but in Spanish it is repeated. So negative adverbs in English are generally in middle position. That is to say, before the verb they modify. The exception is when you have a sentence with a linking verb. Those are what we call copula sentences, okay? Or as an example of an exception, also when we have an auxiliary. And that is why we have these two examples. She rarely comes to my parties. She's never accepted. Anything else to say about negative adverbs here? Is it clear what I'm saying about them? Hardly, right? The thing with hardly is that it belongs, thank you. That's the exception for adverbs of frequency. It's an adverb of degree. Thank you very much. Is it clear what I'm saying? So negative adverbs also carry negative connotation. They are in middle position in English, as shown in the examples. However, when the intention is to emphasize a negative connotation, an inversion of word order is used. When I was a child, when I attended university, I remember this was content of English language too. I don't know now. The use of negative inversion is called. Have you seen negative inversion in any of the English language languages during your career? No?
Yes, I think it's in language too. There's a
Okay.
unit of.
Okay, because this is what we are referring to, the fact that we place the negative element at the beginning of the sentence, so we have an inversion of order because we need to follow the structure for questions, right? A question word order. That happens with negative adverbs and with another element I'm going to be sharing in a minute. So coming back to this fact of inversion of word order, we had the example Analia wrote for me that says, never had anyone seen Edith so happy. Thank you, thank you. Okay, is it clear so far what I'm saying about negative adverbs in English? So they are placed in middle position or in initial position, but with a change of word order. Let's see. If we contrast English and Spanish, and we consider negative adverb being placed in initial position, in order to do something similarly in Spanish, we either place it in initial position, making no change of order, or we place it in final position, which is not possible in English, resulting in double negation. Back again. To start with, if I say Juan nunca vino, John never came or never arrived, we have the same type of example. An adverb, a negative adverb, in middle position. Do you agree on that? Let me type this now.
Yes.
Okay, entonces John never arrived. Juan nunca llegó. Okay. If I decide to reinforce this negative meaning, to place the adverb in English in initial position, what I need to do is imagine the same sentence. I place the adverb in initial position. Do you agree on this form? Never did John arrive. guys?
No.
Why not?
No, wait. Grammatically, it's correct, I think.
Ah,
It
okay.
sounds-
Grammatically is correct. Yes, probably sensical is not that nice. It loses sense, but it's grammatically correct. Because when you place an adverb in initial position, what you do is you turn, let's say, the sentence into a question-like utterance. Okay? But what about Spanish? If I say nunca Juan llegó, was it necessary to turn it into a question or to add any other element to make it look differently? No. Do you agree on that?
Which is the question, please? Sorry, can you repeat it?
I'm trying to place the adverb in initial position. Let me do it in a different way. Just a minute.
In Spanish, nunca Juan llegó, I think there is the position of words is wrong.
You cannot say nunca Juan llegó.
I've never
Nunca
said
llegó Juan.
that way.
Nunca llegó Juan. Okay.
Nunca llegó Juan o Juan nunca llegó.
But if we can conserve this an adverb of negation in initial position, we can say nunca llegó Juan. Indeed, in that case, to emphasize that he never arrived. Okay.
Probably we are saying,
for me, that is the previous example in English. Never did John arrive. That is.
Ajá. Claro, ok. Bueno, a ver, Mónica, ibas a terminar una idea, ya que nos pasamos.
Yes, I was saying that never did John arrive overemphasizes the fact that he never arrived. I mean, when you place the preposition, the adverb at the very beginning, and then you use the auxiliary, it takes the forms of a question, yes, without the question mark, but you use it to overemphasize the fact that John never, ever arrived.
Thank you, Monica, George, for Joaquin. One little thing to say. There are times, this is said by, I wouldn't say I'm an advocate, but I care for structural grammar. There are times when it is grammatically correct, but it is not sensical. Okay? The possibility of placing the adverb at the beginning, it is true. Though it is more likely to happen, as Joshua mentioned, when you have, instead of a name, a noun, a pronoun. Okay? Nunca llegó. So you take the pronoun out. What I just want you to pay attention to is the fact that English uses this inversion of word order that Spanish does not need to. Okay? Much better?
Yes.
¿Se entiende que vamos? Tenemos posición media para los dos como un hecho. Posición inicial para inglés, para ambos en realidad, para reforzar el sentido, para énfasis. Pero el inglés tiene un elemento o un procedimiento, mejor dicho, que el español no tiene, que es el cambio de estructura oracional, que transforma una oración afirmativa en una forma de pregunta, no es que es una pregunta. Okay? That is the idea. So, no worries, we are not going to go into further details today, because that could be for homework. But the idea is that it is grammatically possible, though not sensical. Okay? Or not natural for Spanish speakers. Let's focus on something we mentioned before. The fact that Spanish has a feature English does not. And it is the possibility of placing a negative adverb in final position. So what do I mean by final position? Sorry for the background. So final position means what?
At the end of the sentence
At
or
the end of the sentence.
by the end?
Okay. At the end of the clause. Because we may have a complex sentence and this is the first clause and then you have a second and the like. So you can place the adverb at the end of the clause. The thing is that is possible in in Spanish, but that implies a feature that English does not have it either, which is called double negation. Let me show you the examples. In the first example, I don't have a negative adverb, but I'm showing you what happens if you have an adverbial, a negative adverbial or adverb in final position. The original sentence says, he didn't come either. You can translate it as tampoco vino. So as you see, the negative adverb is in front position or initial position, but you can also say no vino tampoco. So can you see the difference between tampoco vino and no vino tampoco, apart from position?
Yes.
You have,
Maybe,
yes, please.
sorry.
Yes,
Maybe in the first one, tampoco vino means that he didn't come.
Okay.
And in the second, no vino tampoco, maybe no vino, no llamó, no, or I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Or maybe I'm kind of lost.
It will depend on the context, right? Yes, please, Joaquin.
She didn't come. Perdón, ella no vino, él no vino tampoco, o él tampoco vino. Like to say that no, muchas personas no vinieron, incluyendo él o ella.
Okay. So both imply that either you have in the original sentence. And having to do with the position of the negative element, you have tampoco in front position in Spanish and tampoco in final position in Spanish. What did the second example require? Could I have said vino tampoco?
No.
Okay, unless you say, ¿compraste cerveza? No, vino tampoco. But that's different. Okay, I'm just joking. Yeah, vino tampoco cambia el sentido in that sense. But it is much more common or it is actually required that we use a negative element before the verb. That is why we have no vino tampoco. Okay? That use of two negative elements in English, mala mía. Two negative elements in Spanish is what we call double negation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the second feature I mentioned here. You use English simple negative while you use Spanish double negative. Of course, this is one possibility among many. Remember the example Analia typed in the chat. She said something like, no, nunca niego nada. See? The possibility of more than double negation. You may have triple or multiple. We have another example. He will never see her. Nunca la verá. Verá nunca. Which is more or less the same example. The fact that if you place the negative adverb in initial position in Spanish, you only negate once. But if you place that negative adverb at the end, you need to make a double negation. No la verá nunca. Okay? The same happens, the same I have just shown with negative adverbs happens with negative pronouns. Okay? Negative pronouns are not any pronouns. They are actually indefinite pronouns. Remember indefinite pronouns, those that start with some, any, no, okay? They have these prefixes and they are indefinite pronouns. Well, some of these, actually those starting with no, are called negative indefinite pronouns, okay? What we know from English is that we cannot use double negative. So what do? We use the negative pronoun when. You have the first example there. I told nobody about the test. She has nothing to say.
In that case, is used as an object, it's a direct object, or indirect object, depending.
Okay.
Transitive assertion pattern.
Pardon me?
Transitive assertion receiver, depending on that case.
Okay. Which one is the pattern then? Transitive receiver.
I told nobody about the test. I think it's transitive assertion receiver.
Okay, what about the people who was in charge of transitive receiver assertion pattern? The thing is that grammarians had agreed that in order to have an indirect object, there are two possible prepositions, 2 and 4. So structurally speaking, I'm saying structurally speaking, about the test is a prepositional group, not to be considered well, coming back to these two examples. Joaquin has just said, nobody and nothing are objects. I agree. Anything else to say about nobody and nothing? They are negative pronouns and they are in the sentences showing negation, right?
Yes, they can be used also as subject of the sentence.
Okay, they could, right? What else? Think on the examples that are next to them. I didn't tell anybody. She doesn't have anything to say. So what is the conclusion? When do we use negative pronouns?
When we use the verb in the affirmative.
Thank you very much. That's right. Because we are following the same clause, let's say, la misma cláusula, that English only allows one negative element in the sentence. Unless you are singing with Pink Floyd, we don't need no education. But, which is the other example from a song? So, as Monica had just said, you need the verb to be in the affirmative form in order to make use of negative pronouns. That is why if you turn the the verb into negative, you need to use a different pronoun, not a negative one. ¿Vamos bien hasta ahí, chicos, o ya los he perdido en el camino?
No, it's okay.
¡Vuelvan! Exactamente.
The broadcasting voice is translating your lesson. Okay, great.
Cuento una anécdota graciosita, ya que me acordé. Nada que ver con la negación, pero con el vuelvan. Yo sabía tener un hermano de crianza y él estuvo acá durante el periodo de la primaria y estaba aprendiendo la regla de la H. ¿Saben ustedes cuándo se usa la H en español? Bueno, Analia tal vez... Oh, no se la acuerda. Hay reglas.
Hay reglas, sí.
Hay regla. La H se usa, por ejemplo, delante de la UE, como huelga, huevo. Entonces él tenía que escribir un ejemplo y puso, vuelvan, chicos, vuelvan. Así que siempre que digo vuelvan, me acuerdo de la H. Lo que puede ser para un niño, puede ser para un non-native. Así que, you never know. Okay, guys. Summing up. Negative adverbs and negative pronouns, if used in English sentences, are the only negative elements in the sentence. That is why we say that English has a singular negation, okay, or simple negation. In Spanish, again, similarly to negative adverbs, what can we do? We can place them in final position. And once again, what we are going to have as a result is a double negative. And there we have the examples. Oh, sorry for the yellow. You want me to take the yellow out? The highlighting? No?
No, it's okay. I don't know the rest.
He didn't see anyone or he saw no one. These are the two possibilities in English. In Spanish, a nadie vio, no vio a nadie. So similarly, you have the element in final position, so you require a negative element before the verb. Bien, digo algo rapidito en español. Cuando yo hablo de posición final en español, en realidad lo que estoy haciendo es mover. Why in Spanish? Just because I feel like doing it? No. When I place a negative pronoun in final position in Spanish, it's because I feel like doing it. So what I did was to take the negative element before the verb, what it must be. That is why you require that negative element before the verb, because naturally the negative element and the verb should be together. Is it clear what I said?
Yes.
Okay. The other example says, he didn't find anything, he found nothing. Nada encontró, no encontró nada. So as you see, these are similar examples to the ones I mentioned referring to negative adverbs. So far, we have seen that we need an auxiliary plus a particle in English. We need a circunstancial de negación. Wow. In Spanish. Thank you, Joaquin, for that. That we can make use of negative adverbs and negative pronouns in both languages, but if we place them in initial position, what we need is a change in order in English. When we place them in final position, which is possible only in Spanish, we need another negative element in the sentence. And this is actually the summing up of what I have just presented. Okay, guys. You did an excellent work today. So what we are going to do is call this So call it a class. Let's call it a class. And please let me know. Yes, vuelvan, vuelvan. Vuelvan, chicos, no se me los vayan. Let me know whether this was clear, this was not. One other thing I wanted you to bear in mind is that whenever contrasting two languages, not in general, we cannot contrast two whole languages. As you see, we need to contrast specific aspects, specific examples, and the like. But whenever we do so, we generally come to the conclusion that there are two or three core differences between the languages. I'm saying this because the time will come, yes, for you to do something similarly with other linguistic aspects. So even though you display a whole PowerPoint as this one, if you reduce these differences to a few words, you are left with two or three differences and no more than that. It is worth paying attention to if the time comes for you to teach Spanish, for instance. But it is, of course, worth taking into account when teaching English or translating and the like. Okay. Questions? Doubts? Anelia?
Can we share the presentation in the WhatsApp group? Because at the end, I included some links where they can explore the topic.
Yeah, sure, sure. I was thinking of sharing it in the campus.
All right.
But if you think the WhatsApp group is a best way, no worries with that.
No. I'm asking, what do you prefer, the campus or the WhatsApp group? No answer, so you choose it.
The WhatsApp group.
I think that WhatsApp is much easier. Sometimes I get lost in the campus. Sorry.
Ay, ¿quién lo va a eliminar? Great idea, anyway. No me eliminen otra vez. Okay, both.
Who knows? Tal vez algún día me levante un poco particular y cierre los grupos. Okay, no words with that. We just
saque la promoción de la materia.
¿Cómo?
Y saque la promoción de la materia.
Sí, puede ser.
No, por favor.
Puede ser.
Se lo tienen merecido.
Sí. No, y hay otra cuestión, por ahí, no sé, no digo que sea wow, qué material súper importante, lo voy a guardar para toda mi vida, pero está bueno que vayan haciéndose del material si por ahí les interesa para alguna cosa, porque así como me vieron ayer correr a Miss del grupo, vamos reciclando grupos y en algún momento ya no existirá gramática contrastiva 2020. Bien, un segundo.
Okay. So I will share it in the WhatsApp group and Miss Edith will share
Tengo
it.
que pagar algo, ya ven.
Yes, no problem. I will. I want to share the last part. Are you in a hurry? I mean, the group. Hello.
Not me.
Okay, so I will. Yes, I know you have lots of things to do, but I want to show the last part of the presentation. So then when you get it, you don't say, what's this? Oh, sorry. Well, I'm in it. Okay. Double negatives, as you said, well, there you have your examples, okay? In English, negative plus negative amounts to positive, okay? No one has no friends means what?
That everybody has friends.
Yes. This was not unknown for me. What is the meaning? Are you new or not?
Sorry, could you
In
please?
the second example, this was not unknown for me.
That it was known.
Okay, I knew about it. I'm
Yes.
not unaware of the fact. Okay,
Unaware of the fact.
all right.
I'm
So
aware.
negative
I
plus
am
this is a
aware.
little mathematic. Negative plus negative. We can use double negative,
Positive.
but
Yes.
with a positive sense. This is what it says at the beginning. Yes. In
That
the
doesn't happen in Spanish,
no,
for example.
unlike English. Yes. Unlike English, true or more negative do not equate to a positive. This is what it says there. And I wanted to show you something I found in one of the articles you will read, that pragmatically we break the grammatical rule of not using multiple negation in English. That is to say, multiple negation is used in English, sometimes for artistic or literary purposes, or also in colloquial English. Yeah. For example, let's take the second example from Oscar Wilde's play. It's a woman speaking, I don't remember the name, sorry, of the character. I do not propose to undeceive my husband. Indeed, I have never undeceived him on any question. ¡Oh! ¡Qué rebuscadita la señora! What is the real meaning? What is the real meaning? Sorry. Does she tell the truth to his husband? To her husband?
That she's always deceived him or
Okay.
cheated on him.
Yes, very good. That she's in fact deceiving her husband. That she does not tell him the truth always. Okay, so es una manera rebuscada de esconder el significado. I do not propose to deceive. Do not then never and. Okay, I have sorry, undeceive. We have a negative. Yes, auxiliary plus a negative verb. It is not unreasonable to ask for an extension for the exam, for an extension, sorry. We can use it also. It is used, though it is not so common. It would not be unfair to say she did not look her best. Okay, we use it. Of course, and this seems to be too formal, but let's consider the last one. In colloquial English, in some non-standard English, we use double negative. My car ain't got no brakes. I ain't no money. Is that so? Have you ever heard examples
Yes, in songs,
like?
but
So,
not in colloquial English.
all right. So we use multiple negation or double negation, but with the opposite meaning, right? Or for a special purpose. In this case,
Sorry, not informal. I mean, in colloquial, but not informal.
okay, yes, colloquially we use it. For example, no one could deny that he was not a devoted husband and father. This is from written language, and it happens a lot when you read, okay, literature. Okay, so the last one is the only colloquial, non-standard use, okay?
But the thing is that literature breaks rules as well.
And look at this, the first one is for me. I don't not eat bread. I don't not eat bread because I'm afraid of getting fat. I don't eat it because I see no point in it. Well, this is completely the opposite. I love bread. but you can use it. Okay, it's from a novel. I don't have it read. For me, it is ungrammatical, but well,
You can use them to prove that multiple negation exists, but not recommended to us not to be given a speech by English language teachers to make use of negative,
of
double,
course.
multiple in English.
Well, and well, actually, there we have more information about that I took from different pages. Yes. Ah, la question tag la dejamos para la otra clase. O ya la vieron. Sí, ya la vieron. Sources, ahí están los artículos.
Well, question tags is the funny thing about que no.
Ah, sí. Okay.
You
will
probably know. Question tags. You know, question tags, it's something we try to explore at the beginning of today's class, which is the fact that we use in English an affirmative statement with a negative tag or a negative statement with an affirmative tag. The thing is that in Spanish, we don't use such contrast between the main clause and the tag, because in Spanish, what we use, and we know the name Joaquín, apéndices confirmativos o interrogativos. That is to say, the adverb no, or the word verdad, or no es verdad, o que no, o no cierto.
Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Profe, ¿lo puede escribir el nombre?
¿A dónde?
En el chat, el profe Edith, si puede escribir el nombre del device.
A ver, mira si después nos critican. No, a nosotros nos habían corregido que así era. Apéndice confirmativo o interrogativo.
Are you watching the presentation or not? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
It's here, apéndices.
Confirmativo o interrogativo sería la tag.
Claro, in Spanish.
La tag.
Y ahí están los ejemplos. Those are the examples.
He saw Jack, didn't he? Lo vio a Jack, ¿verdad? Lo vio a Jack, ¿no? He didn't see Jack, didn't he? No lo vio a Jack, ¿verdad? No lo vio a Jack, ¿no? Que no.
Que no.
¿Cierto? And the like.
Ahí está. Interjections like
¿Eh?
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 ¿Ah?
Are sometimes used in some dialects, it says. Probably we can call Andres Arroyo, who does a study on the Spanish language of the region, to explain us how come these interjections are used.
Sabías que tenías examen, ¿eh?
Ay, 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 ay. Bueno, chicos, si no les molesta, podemos hacer una introducción al español para hablar de las semanas de exámenes que se vendrán. Estábamos pensando con Analía que se van a venir muchas coincidencias entre semanas de exámenes y clases. Y en nuestro caso particular, al ser una materia que queremos continuar considerando promocional, somos de la idea de tratar de no perder esas semanas. Más no sea si llegara a coincidir que la clase presencial se transforma en un video que le subamos, pero no perder esas semanas de clase porque estamos temiendo de quedar con contenido que nos interesaría porque consideramos que para la formación son centrales, medulares. Así que si no están en desacuerdo, si les parece bien, no vamos a... Porque si nos ponemos verdaderamente en ese, ¿cómo decirlo? En esa rutina que teníamos de la semana previa a los exámenes, no digo esta semana, sino cuando vengan los exámenes de septiembre, en el mes de octubre, en el mes de diciembre y demás, vamos a entrar en esa de una semana antes tomarnos porque tenemos exámenes, entonces, bueno, ya no vamos a tener clases, ¿no? Entonces, vamos a bajar un poquito la intensidad cuando coincidan, pero vamos a tratar de no perder esas semanas. ¿Todos de acuerdo? Puedo ver sus sonrisas.
Sí, yo estoy de acuerdo, yo no rindo nada, así que no tengo problema.
Así que, obviamente que si alguien está muy jugado, pero así de decir, profe, yo me tengo que sacar la materia en septiembre sí o sí y no voy a participar, pero no descartar esas semanas como semanas de clase. A eso voy. Se aceptan opiniones.
Digo que yo no rindo nada, así que no tengo problema.
Y los que sí,
No sé, por eso, yo.
Usted dice los turnos de marzo.
no, bueno,
Los
no
que eran
lo de marzo.
supuestamente marzo.
Y ya los de marzo ya estamos jugados, ya son ahora.
Todos los que siguen.
Claro,
terminando.
todos los que siguen.
Ah, cierto.
Son estas semanas.
Sí,
Entonces,
las de marzo son esta
drama.
semana. Por eso, van a venir en septiembre, van a venir en octubre, van a venir en diciembre.
Yo voy a rendir tres.
Por ahora sí.
Nos mutuamente, bajamos un poco la intensidad, pero sí seguimos la actividad en el foro, más no sea en el foro, en el campus. ¿Sí? Porque como digo,
Sí.
serían muchas semanas perdidas en el interín, y si por ahí no logran participar, porque la verdad que están muy jugados con algunas cátedras, avisen. Vamos a saber entender. ¿Sí? Porque hay otra. Nos podríamos poner a 100 brujas, que por ahí nos ponemos, ¿no es así, Analia? No, no se haga acá
Nunca digas nunca.
no se haga la que no me pone toda la enciclopedia británica de fondo para humillar. No es
La
la
compré hace 22 años, que ya era hora que...
La Great Books, ¿cuál compraste ahí?
¿No? La compré con mis primeros sueldos y quedó encajonada, quedó allá en la casa de mi mamá, y el otro día me dice mi mamá, ¿qué haces esto acá? Ya no hay lugar, llévatelo. Ok. Y aquí
Bueno,
está
pero vos
todo.
tenés, a ver, mira, te voy a piñar. Vos tenés más que la enciclopedia británica, vos tenés los Great Books.
Eran mis primeros sueldos, nunca viajé al exterior, nunca me compré un auto, compré la enciclopedia británica.
Ya vamos a humillar, ya vamos a humillar.
No tengo nada más que eso, o sea, ¿quieren que les muestre mi casa?
No, mira,
¿Quieren que les muestre ceboque sin pintar?
No, mira, acá tengo manuales, masa y todo lo demás. ¿Qué diferencia? Ahí hay una enciclopedia británica, pero bueno. Bueno, quedaríamos así, tema mesa de examen. No digo que nos podemos poner en brujas, sí, no, chicos, tenemos que hacer la clase, pero nos va a coincidir, algún examen nos va a coincidir, vamos a tener que ir nosotros y al cacarulo de clase, así que bueno.
Eso es que el coronavirus no decide lo contrario, así que yo ni me angustiaría.
Sí, ay, sí, bueno, no quiero pensar. Como digo, las semanas que nos coincidan, nos pongamos de acuerdo en eso. Lo hacemos todo en línea, asincrónico, pero pido una cosa, vivo tantas vidas al mismo tiempo que nos recuerden la semana y digan, o sea, la semana que viene, profe, es la de exámenes, así. No nos entusiasmamos de otro modo, ni establecemos compromisos que habíamos dicho que no íbamos a hacer. ¿Ok? ¿Todo bien? Entonces, bueno, una última cosita.
Un mensaje privado después que lo puede...
Diga.
Que le deje un mensaje privado después para...
Bien, perfecto. Una última cosita, ya me olvidé. Ah, sí. No ya, pero hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy pronto voy a estar compartiéndoles una entrevistita no, le vamos a estar compartiendo una encuestita sencilla para ver la factibilidad del modelo de aula invertida. ¿Sí? Porque estamos tratando de usarlo un poquito mejor, pero bueno, ya que pasan unas cuantas clasecitas más, Así que bueno, ahí lo vamos a hacer. ¿No pasó qué?
No digo, si no te acordás, no pasó, no hay nada, o sea, double negative.
No hay testigos, soy inocente. Sí. Así que
Ok.
bueno, eso también. Que eso le voy a pedir a todos que pongan su más fiel respuesta, más allá de lo dolorosa. Estamos evaluando el modelito a ver si funciona. Okay. Well, guys, that's all for now. Thank you very much. I hope it was not too exhausting because it was grammar. But this is it. This is contrastive grammar. ¿Que no? ¿Haces la gramática contrastiva? ¿Que no? Chicos, gracias. Nos vemos la semana próxima. Take care. Bye bye.
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 Bye bye.
Will you stay, Edith?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Voy cerrando